Welcome back, guys. Yesterday I was spraying with my ATV. I got a Suzuki ATV 400. It's a 2006 model. Taking real good care of it. It's got 12 or 1400 miles on it. It's kept inside, so I'm able to preserve it. And these things are expensive nowadays, so the longer I can keep this thing in service, the better it is for our pocketbook out here at Piney Grove. Well, actually, I'm not at Piney Grove. I'm back at my house today. But yesterday I was running into an overheat situation, and in an earlier video, and I'll post that up here, I actually put a new carburetor on this thing. I put a new air cleaner kit. I bought a spark plug. I haven't put it in yet. But I had put in an oil temp sensor in the side of the engine block here. I was having an overheat light that was staying on all the time, and it was because that sensor had gone bad. It actually wasn't in an overheat situation. So this particular model of Suzuki, and this is going to apply to like their, I think their Quadzilla and their King Quad series as well, is it's an oil-cooled engine. So it's pressure lubed. It sends that pressure to an oil cooler. So as you're driving down the road and rushing air across that oil cooler and across the fins of this engine, that's how it cools. So there's a hole right here in the cowling. Here it is right here. And you can feel that heat come by your legs. Yesterday I wasn't feeling that heat come out because there's a fan in there that assists when you're at low speed. And I was doing a lot of spraying at low speed around Piney Grove, but I never heard the fan come on, and I never felt that rush of hot air coming across my leg. So eventually I got in an overheat situation. My temp light came on like it's supposed to, but the fan never came on. So I quit doing what I was doing, loaded it up on the trailer, and I thought I was in for a big repair bill. But the reason that I'm making this video is I did some searches online, and the sensor switch that goes into the engine that tells that fan to kick on is only like an $8 or $12 part. It's kind of hidden back here, and I had to remove a bunch of cowlings, but I didn't know if it was that sensor or the actual fan that's in front of the oil cooler. And that fan is going to be a lot more expensive than that sensor. So I took this apart and found where it's linked together, that sensor and the fan, and I pulled that link apart, and I actually jumped it with a piece of wire. And that's what I wanted to show in today's video, how I troubleshot this and isolated the fan from the switch. So I'm going to bring the camera in and show you some stuff. I have an oil line that goes to the oil cooler, and then an oil line that's returned. So it's one or the other. Either this one sends oil or brings oil back, or vice versa for this line. And you can see where the plastic actually melted on here a little bit where it got hot yesterday. And here's the oil filter, and back there's two switches that I talked about. One that turns on the light that says your engine's overheating, and one that sends a signal to the fan to turn it on. And this is the coupler that couples that to the other end of that electrical fitting goes, is right there. And we'll talk about that in a second. So that's the oil cooler. And then behind the oil cooler, and it's going to be hard to see, there's a fan, and the fan draws air from the front of the ATV towards me where I'm riding and brings air across these fins. That cooler right there is filled with oil, and that's how this thing cools itself. Now come up under here. Here's the oil cooler, and here's the fan. And you can see replacing that would be quite a problem. There's the oil temperature sensor that sends a signal to the oil light that tells you you're in an overheat condition, and then there's the sensor that senses the oil temperature that tells the fan to come on. And here's the wires we were talking about a second ago. So the light that I'm talking about is right here. When that light comes on, you're in an overheat situation, and that light should never come on because the fan should come on and start cooling the oil before it ever gets in an overheat situation. So let me tell you how we troubleshot this. We took a strand of this wire, and this is just some wire I had laying around, and we cut one of these strands off. So we took that strand of wire and made a U shape and plugged it into this female end. And what that does is that simulates a signal coming from the thermal switch that's in the side of the engine to tell the fan to kick on. So with that shorted out between those two electrical connections, that's basically telling that fan to turn on. Well, so now when I turn on the switch to the engine and put it in the on position, the fan should come on, and that'll tell me that it's not the fan's not the problem, that $7 switch is the problem. So let's see what happens. All right, here we go. We got that little jumper in there. We're going to take this switch and turn it on, and the fan should come on. Sure enough, you can hear that fan. I put my hand here, I can feel all that air coming, And what that does is that pulls air from that oil cooler, also pushes air across these fins and cools the engine. So with that simple U-shaped piece of jumper wire, we're able to troubleshoot between the fan, which is probably very expensive. I didn't price it, it's probably a couple $100, and a $7 thermal switch. So with a very inexpensive U-shaped jumper wire, we are able to isolate the fan versus the thermal switch is the problem. And now all signs point to the thermal switch. All right, I'm going to pull out this piece of wire just to show you what we did. So it's just a U-shaped piece of wire, and that's all I did. I used that as a jumper. All right, I'm going to go inside and tell Miss Piney Grove to put that on order with Amazon, and we should have this thing back and running here in about a week. But we've got Hurricane Ian coming, so we're doing hurricane prep here in Panama City. So I don't know when I'll get around to putting that switch in, but I do need this ATV because it's what I use to spray all my food plots. But that's going to do it for today's video. Just wanted to share that little tip out there. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please click that like button at the bottom, subscribe if you haven't already, and share with your friends. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, y'all.